So welcome everyone to the fourth session in our Teacher, Technician and Advisor workshop series. Thank you to everyone who attended last week's events. We've got another 4 this week, so if you haven't booked on already, there's still time to do so, and also for next week's workshops as well. I'll be handing over to Martin and Jamie very shortly, but first of all, for those of you who didn't attend last week's sessions, my name is Liv and I work in the recruitment and outreach team at NUA. And we hope that these sessions will give you some useful resources and tools to take back to the classroom. We are really sorry that we can't hold it on campus at the moment, but hopefully you'll get to know us and get some exciting tips as well. We're very aware that during this strange and uncertain time, you and your students will be feeling very anxious, particularly about your students' futures. And we want to help you in the best way that we can with these workshops. And also we will pop a link to our FAQs about COVID-19 and how we're dealing with them in the chat. So just some housekeeping bits before we do get going. If you could please keep your audio and video muted for the majority of this morning's workshop, that will just make sure that we can keep this running as smoothly as possible. There will be specific moments, however, where we would like to see how you're getting on with your work, and hopefully you'll be happy to share that with us. And if you are, you can just let us know in the chat function at the bottom of your screen, and then we can unmute you and get your video on as well. We are also recording this session for you, so please don't worry if your connection drops out or if we have any technical problems. We will make sure that this is available for you afterwards. Also, if you do have any questions for us, you can pop them in the chat, which will be open for you to talk amongst yourselves, and we will be on hand to answer those questions throughout the presentation and workshop element, but also at the end we'll make sure that Jamie and Martin are on hand to answer any of those questions before we finish. So I think that's everything from me, and so I'll hand over to Martin and Jamie to get going with the workshop.
Thanks, Liv. Good morning, everybody. My name is Martin. I'm the course leader for the 4 graphics courses at NUA. That's graphic design, graphic communication, design for publishing, and user experience design. And I'm joined by one of our super brilliant lecturers, Jamie, who is, I think, on screen as well. And he and I are going to talk you through a creative ideas workshop. It's really a kind of brand advertising workshop. But just before we do that, I'm going to run you through a super quick version of a kind of course presentation. So apologies for the speed, but I'm going to try and focus really on what the 4 courses are and how they're similar, but also their areas of difference. There are 1 or 2 bits of film and audio in the talk. Hopefully they'll play okay and you'll hear them okay. There might be a little bit of lag due to sort of presenting over Zoom, but none of them are too long, so hopefully they'll sort of be all right. So yeah, we'll crack on. And as Liv said, if you've got any questions while I'm sort of talking about the courses, please pop them in the chat. And then at the end of that, we can do a tiny bit of Q&A if there is any, and then we can crack on with the workshop. Okay. So, okay. Well, the first thing I always like to say is what a pleasure it is to lead these courses. They are genuinely brilliant. They have a huge standing amongst graphic design employers for the quality of the work that our students do, and our graduates are highly employable, and we have one of the best employment rates in the UK amongst any graphics courses. So I'm going to try and explain a little bit about why that is the case. Oh, right, there we go. First technical problem of the day. Sorry, I've got a window up that I don't need up. Oh, dear me. Right, Liv, I'm struggling to get this. Oh, there we go. Can you see that? Right. Okay. One of the things about our courses is the huge amount of industry engagement we have. Phil is one of the best known graphic designers in the UK. He actually studied at NUA back in the sort of 70s. And he and many other people have said some tremendously positive things about our students, such as what Phil's saying here. We spend, all of us as lecturers, an enormous amount of time talking to employers and getting them involved in the courses in lots and lots and lots of different ways. It's not just a case of these guys coming in and giving a talk. They run competitions, they run placements, they run portfolio surgeries, they do all sorts of things with our students. And as a result, the students are really aware of what working as a designer is all about. And it makes their work realistic, and it makes their work competitive. These are the 4 courses: graphic design, graphic communication, design for publishing, and user experience design, which is brand new. We've only been running user experience design for a year, but it is very much at home amongst these other 3 courses, which are longer established. We have a truly unique setup at year 1, in as much as it doesn't matter at the beginning which of the 4 courses you're on, because you do exactly the same briefs. So whether you're a user experience student or a publishing student, you are doing the same work in that first year. And as you go through year 1, you learn more and more about what second and third year will be like on the 4 courses. And at the end of year 1, if you want to, you can leave the course you're on and join one of the other 3. I don't think anywhere else offers quite that setup. So the reason we do it is because although there is a lot of overlap between these graphics disciplines, each of them does something that the other 3 don't do. So really what we offer at NUA is the opportunity for you to become super, super good at the one bit of the much broader area of graphics that you really love doing. But to start with, it doesn't really matter, because you will do all of the same work regardless of which of the 4 courses you're on. So in effect, it looks a bit like this. It's like a 4-pronged fork, with all students completing the same projects in year 1. And then if you wish, you don't have to, but if you wish, you can swap to one of the others as you enter second year. So what I'm going to try and do now is just highlight the core differences between the courses. Graphic design is the term that most people use. It's the most popular course name in UCAS. Our version of it at NUA is very, very well known, and it has a particular reputation for branding and identity work and packaging. Packaging is a huge sector of the graphics industry, and we do focus on that on the graphic design course. I'm going to show you a few little examples, 4 or 5 examples now of the graphic design work before we look at the other 3 courses. So here you see this poster. This is advertising an exhibition of war photography. The standard way you might do this is you might have an image from the exhibition. You'd pop that on the poster with the dates and times, but we prefer our students to have a visually creative idea. And what you see here is that someone's arranged the equipment that photographer might use in a particular way, and of course it looks like a gun. And even the name of the exhibition there, the word shoot, has that double meaning in it. So we teach people to have sort of clever and memorable ideas. Here you see another poster for an exhibition of wildlife photography, and you can see there's 2 framed photos on the wall, but there's a very funny sort of story going on in the relationship between those 2 images. Packaging might sound dull. It isn't, at least our take on it isn't. Here is one of the most humble products you could probably buy in a supermarket, but given a really lovely witty idea, the O of OXO morphs, as you see on the left, from an onion to a cow to a chicken to a lamb, as it goes across the range of those different stock cubes. This is an identity for a place a little bit like B&Q, and the H of home hardware is created in the negative shape of that hammer, just hovering above the nail there. So a lovely thought, but the clever thing is the student then found a way to replicate that thought across a range of packaging that would appear inside that shop. So getting the idea in the first place is one thing, but finding a sort of stretch in it and making it work across a range is a different skill altogether. Lovely bottle of packaging here. Sorry, bottle of gin, for a Bath gin, and the typography and the sort of visual branding there, very much referencing the kind of classic English porcelain you would find in bathroom furniture. even the bottle top there looking like a sort of Victorian tap that you would find on a sink. And this is a final bit, and we'll move on to the others. This is a lovely piece of whiskey packaging. This is a piece of motion, so fingers crossed it plays well. Design for publishing. Probably the course title with the name that sounds most like what it is. Students on this course produce work for the publishing industry, things that are published generally, so books, magazines, journals, newspapers. These are the students that have the best page design skills, and they are also the students that are most adept at working with large amounts of content, some of it generated by themselves, some of it found, lots and lots and lots of text, lots and lots and lots of image work as well. Image work is important because we focus on how to engage people in stories and how to engage them in content. And one of the ways that you do that is through images. So we work closely with photographers on the course. We help students art direct images as part of the content of the stories that they're dealing with. As you might expect, there's also a strong focus on book production, paper, print, finishing, binding. But it would be wrong to assume that the publishers only deal with printed books and printed journals and printed newspapers. They don't. They design websites, they design apps, they design books with AR in them, all sorts of clever things like that as well. But always with an idea at heart. This is a lovely book cover for a book about protest graphics, something that's very current right now. So this is a book full of the sort of DIY aesthetic of people that have something to say, something that they're angry about. And of course the book jacket looks a little bit like someone's made it at the kitchen table with a big marker pen. Redesign of the outer covers of the Ordnance Survey maps here. If you've ever seen an Ordnance Survey map, these are the maps that sort of hill walkers and people going hiking use. They have lovely colour gradients in them, and these here used on the cover to give a hint at the local landscape that the map is covering. If you're local to Norwich, the one in the middle will be a joke that you get. Again, working with images, collage. These are covers of one of the Guardian supplements. Images of a different type here, what you might call infographics, so dealing with data, dealing with statistical information, trying to make that information visually accessible and understandable. Working with book covers as well as the content of book, working with book covers, magazine design and page layout, working with photography and type and grid. So a very, very strong focus on arranging elements on a page, working with masses and masses of content and making that engaging. So graphic communication, possibly the broadest of the courses in the sense that it really feels like it's right in the center of what graphic design agencies do. Really, it's all about brand communications across any platform that organizations need to communicate on. So a strong focus on digital, because all of us use our smartphones to interact with brands and products and services, or we buy things online. So the students on graphic communication they might design an identity, but they will all make it move, they'll make it sound like something. So there's a very strong digital focus to graphic communication. So all the students on this course are taught how to use things like After Effects and Premiere Pro to bring what otherwise would have been static things to life on screen. We start with very, very simple things like this. So in this exercise, we were giving students a word, and they had to animate that word to bring that word and its meaning to life. We also produce identities that move. This is an identity for a film festival that focuses on artificial intelligence. So there's still a really strong focus on aesthetics, on typography, on layout, but also how that works on the screen and how it moves and how it lives. And again, all about ideas. This is a small part of a much larger campaign trying to discourage people from using single-use plastic. The idea here was that bottles that had successfully made their way back to a recycling plant would be repurposed with these bright orange sheets of paper and then redistributed to chiller cabinets and the sort of places you might buy that bottle of water. Really to jolt people out of their kind of lethargy and get them to notice these bottles and perhaps pick them up, open them up and pull the sheet of paper out, on which was written some, there were about 10 of these with different messages, different facts and statistics. And really, you know, this idea of message in a bottle, this really sort of simple idea. Some branding here for a festival all about colour. The posters all had this circle cut out and they were deliberately positioned in and around near the venue on very bright coloured backgrounds, as you see here. And then the application of this identity across a much wider range of environments, everything from merchandise to signage systems to programmes and catalogues. So a lot of the work on graphic communication will be about the multiple application of an idea across different environments, print environments and screen environments. And then lastly, user experience design, as I said, a new course, but a huge growing area that is changing so quickly. It's hard to predict what our current students will be doing as they leave in 2 or 3 years' time. But it's all really about the design of or the improvement of digital products and services. So particularly things like apps and websites and other sorts of interactive interfaces. This is the sort of course that really suits not just creative people, but analytical people, people that like to think about problems, identify what problems are through research, and then come up with design proposals to improve the experience of using them, and then to test their proposals through formal methods that we will teach on the UX course. I'm going to show you a couple of little examples of bits of sort of user interaction and UX design. I'm going to draw your attention to a small part of that film there. There was a lovely little moment where you were able to rank how funny you found something. That was a little bit like Spotify, but all full focused around comedy. So rather than a kind of sliding scale of 1 to 5, there was that idea of how many ha-ha-has it should get. And I'll ask you afterwards, if you're an iPhone owner, to have a little look at the very subtle interaction that happens when you switch your flight mode on and off. You may not have noticed it, but you'll notice a little plane comes in from the left, and if you turn it off again, it moves to the right and fades away very subtly. And it's that sort of user interaction that we really love as designers. So it's one of the things that the course focuses on.
My name's Pete Abbott, and my work for my final major project revolves around the use of augmented reality as an interface for smart connected domestic products. What the project aims to do is to give us better insights into the smart connected objects that we find around us. I also looked into developing a source map, and what this does is it helps show how you might draw data from the internet to give you nutritional information, recipes, and also the process of cooking food and develop.
My name is Martin. My final media project is called SnapWeb. It's a physical site building kit. It's all done with magnets. So what you have is physical components that are printed on plywood. And the idea is that you can actually take all these and actually build it physically and see that being scanned into the website and see the website being generated.
Encouraged to pursue or interest amongst content. Tutors are very supportive, especially when it comes to technology. They're always very keen to help us learn how this has real world application.
The observant amongst you will remember that I said that the course is only a year old. So I need to point out that the work I'm showing you now was actually produced by students on the graphics courses. In fact, it was produced by graphic communication students, but it was produced by some students that have a very, very strong leaning towards user experience design. So this is indicative of the type of work that you might do. Fundamentally, the course in its first year, because it's shared with the other graphics courses, is all about the core design skills, problem solving, idea generation, all of those sorts of things that are useful and vital if you are a UX designer. The second year is all about the kind of UX toolkit. We give you all of the research methodologies and the software skills and all the rest of the things that you need to become a UX designer, having had that kind of core design first year. And then in the third year, you apply it to a set of really, really broad projects. So this is indicative work. And one more quick example. This is a little interface for a banking app. So, I mean, this is why we put user experience with our graphics students, because what you're seeing there is you're seeing branding, you're seeing how brand moves on screen, you're seeing design, you're seeing storytelling, as well as you're seeing interaction design and user interface design. Okay, last bit now, and before we get on with the workshop. As I said at the beginning, we have a huge number of ways in which employers engage with our students during the course of their studies with us. And I really, I mean, this is going to sound like an arrogant boast, but I cannot think of another course that sort of focuses on employers in the same way that we do. And I do have some track record in this. I have worked at a number of places. I'm an external at a number of places. So I have a sort of privileged insight. We work with employers in lots and lots of ways. They teach on our courses. These are people that work in industry all the time, but they come in as visiting lecturers, as visiting tutors. They give talks, they give presentations, they run portfolio workshops, they run placement schemes, they do all sorts of things. And it is, it allows our students to really become comfortable with the idea of the professional world of work. So it's not something scary waiting for them at the end of third year. It's something that they're comfortable with and something that they're familiar with. And it does lead to really high levels of employability. The NUA stat for students having jobs 6 months after leaving is somewhere around 95, 96%. The stat that you really want to know is this one. The graphics courses have about 86% of people working within graphics. So that isn't any job. That is a job that they trained for, and that is within 6 months of leaving. And as course leader, my core job is to get that statistic higher and higher and higher. But it is about 20% above the national average already. So it's very, very good. And our graduates are highly employable. And they do work at some of the best agencies in the UK and globally. We are competitive. Part of this whole idea of employment is about putting your work in front of professional juries. These juries are made up of design agencies, people that work in some of the best agencies internationally, particularly with competitions like D&AD. So these are a number of award schemes that we enter every year. Some of these are very, very bespoke competitions that are set up by agencies, and they are really competition between a number of courses that those agencies favour. So for example, things like Bulletproof and Blue Marlin and JDO, these are briefs that they write briefs every year and they send them out to a select number of courses. And again, it's going to sound arrogant, but we expect to win, or at the very least, we expect to be a runner-up, and that does happen year after year. We have a bulging trophy cabinet, and the number of awards in there over the last decade is somewhere near this figure. In fact, when I say somewhere near, it's beyond this figure. We don't count anymore. And hot off the press, most of the big schemes haven't announced their prizes yet, but 3 have: Dragon Rouge, Bulletproof, and the International Society of Publication Designers. So here are the first 3 that have come in the last few weeks. We do a big event in London. In fact, we do 2 events in London every year. One of them is just our own event, where we bring students to employers directly. We put them in a room together. We fill those employers full of beer, which is always useful, and we get people swapping business cards. And this is a really well attended event. Last year we had 175 industry guests come through, and lots of business cards being swapped, and people making those first proper conversations about the work that they've finished the course with. So there we go. That is a whistle-stop chat. Sorry it's so fast, but if you want to take a screenshot, my email address is there. And please, if you do have questions after today, I'm very, very happy to take any email questions from you. And if you are on Instagram, NUA_graphics, we post a lot of work there, and that's a great way to see more than I've been able to show you today. Liv, I don't know if any questions have come in on the chat. If they have, then I'm happy to take a few now. Otherwise, I can tee up the workshop.
I think we'll go straight into the workshop. If that's
fine. Okay, right. I'm just going to bring that up.
And then I have, just so you know, Martin, I've sent the link to the YouTube show reel, just so if anybody did struggle to see any of those clips that you were playing, they can have a look at the wider examples of work from the graphics course.
Brilliant, brilliant. Right, hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so Jamie and I are going to run a fun little sort of idea generation workshop as you might apply those ideas to an advert. And this is exactly an exercise that we do with our own students. So it's very real. We normally do this over about 2.5 hours. Whereas we only have half an hour, but you're all super bright teachers, so that's all the time you need. What we're going to do is we're going to break that 30 minutes or so into 3 10-minute sessions. So what we're going to do in a moment, I'll talk you through the task, but what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to have a go at producing an advert. I will give you the sort of constraints in a second or two. All you really need is your thinking caps on and a pen or a pencil and a sheet of paper. But you need to work fast because 10 minutes will fly by. What we'd like to do, and I will use a sort of stopwatch, is at around about the 10-minute mark, we'll just pause proceedings. And if anyone is feeling brave, what we'd love you to do is perhaps put your camera on and then show that work to the camera so that everybody can see it, and we'll have a little chat about it, and Jamie and I will offer any sort of initial thoughts that we can. And if 2 or 3 people are willing to do that every 10 minutes or so, that would be great, and that way it will feel as interactive as we can make it. And whilst those little 10 minutes are going on, you'll be beavering away, but I'll put up 1 or 2 images to sort of inspire you, and all of these are drawn from the professional world of advertising, and they're very, very much sort of thing I suppose we're looking for, although not as polished, of course. Right, so as you can see, we only need you to have a pen and paper. You will be trying to produce a sort of advert, so all you need to do is scribble out an idea on your sheet of paper. It doesn't matter how bad the drawing is, how terrible the handwriting is. We're not after you know, sort of graphic perfection here. We are only after an idea. Okay, so do think of an image. If you could imagine this advert having a photograph in it, then scribble what that photograph might be. And if it's got text, which it probably will do, then think about that too. We're going to give you 3 parameters. So we're going to ask you to work with a brand, which you'll I'll put the list up in a moment. And then to throw that into a sort of sharp focus, you can either try to aim the advert at a particular audience, which I'll show you also in a moment, or you might think about where you might locate the advert, or if you're super clever, you might try and put all 3 into the mix. So it might be a brand aimed at a particular audience in a particular location. You'll see what I mean in just a second. This is an example. You may recognize this. This was in the news. It caught the media's attention just before the last general election. And this is exactly the sort of thing that we're trying to get you to sort of think about. So the backstory behind this, if you haven't seen it before, was just prior to the election, Burger King in this case took advantage of the fact that one of their products is called the Whopper. And of course, we know a Whopper has 2 meanings. It also it means a lie. And this references back to the pledge that Boris Johnson made during the Brexit campaign. So you've got this fantastic little idea here that relies on really the copywriting and the location. So this wouldn't work on a poster site. It had to work on a bus because, of course, the lie about the funds of the NHS was on the side of the bus. So this is the kind of thing we're trying to get you to do. So what we need you to have a look at are these groups of global brands, and you can pick one. And all I would advise you to do is if you get stuck, drop it and pick something else. You have a group of people that are loosely defined as a sort of a targeted audience, or indeed you have a group of sort of locations, okay? So the trick really here is to, if you are interested in, I don't know, say Amazon, what you need to do is work out what you want Amazon to be saying in their advert. If it was IKEA, what would IKEA want to say? So this is entirely up to you, but the ad needs a message. So you need to think about, for example, maybe with IKEA, it's the joy of having things that are flat packed and you can make them at home, or it might be that everything for the home is available under one roof. It's entirely up to you. The sort of possibilities for what that message coming from the brand might be are endless. But you do need to sort of think a little bit about what that message might be, and then how it might be received by a particular audience, or whether you think the message would work particularly well in a certain place, perhaps on a piece of clothing or on the side of a building or whatever. So that is fundamentally the task. Hopefully that makes sense to you all. I think the next things I'm going to show you are examples, and I'll flash up a few as we go through the first 10-minute session. If there are any questions, now would be a good time to ask them. Liv, I don't know if anything's come through on the chat.
Nothing as yet, so okay. I think we'll kind of get going and then I'll pop up to ask them.
Okay, so I've got, as far as my clock's concerned, it's about 4 minutes past 11. So at about 14 minutes past 11, we will, so keep this Zoom open. I'll leave this on the screen here, or at least I'll keep coming back to it. What all you need to do now is get pen and paper out and crack on, scribble away, work as fast as you can. Jamie, I don't know if you want to add any quick thoughts to sort of contextualize the brief.
Not particularly, but there are a couple of little pointers that might help. So, I mean, a really, really great place to start is always with the copy. So think about what the brands are saying, what the brands might kind of their ethos might be, how they might talk to their consumer, or if you with Nike, how would you talk to teenagers? How would you talk to a retired couple? Do you use the kind of the slogans as well? So this is always a good route in. So that's just if you're struggling, then go back to kind of their communication. That's usually a good.
Yeah, that's a great thought. So, I mean, you know, all these brands already have existing assets, don't they? So Nike has a tick, it has a sort of just do it thing. Can that be played with? Can it be twisted? You know, they have a logo, they have an identity. Can they be subverted? Can they be twisted? So that's a really good thought about a place to start. So we're going to let you crack on, and in about 10 minutes we'll see if anyone wants to share their screen. And in a moment or two, I will flash up the first sort of inspirational image for you just to sort of look at, perhaps to give you some thoughts and some inspiration. Okay, so off you go. This first image I'm showing you here is an advert encouraging people in Quebec in Canada to wear a seatbelt, and it's a great idea. You can see that what the seatbelt is doing is covering up what would otherwise have been the year of that person's death. So really lovely little thought there. Jamie, are you and I going to have a go at this challenge?
Yeah, go on then. Have a little think.
Right, Jamie, I've cracked it. Pressure's on, everybody. Lovely little image here. Again, just to give you some inspiration. This is advertising episode 3 of Star Wars. Again, this is a great example of putting it in the right location. This is one of these things. I think they're called an ad shell. It's an illuminated poster site, but they've deliberately sort of not really put the poster there. So you see the fluorescent tubes, which strongly, well, firstly, there's 3 of them because it's the 3rd episode, but they have that subtle connection to a lightsaber. So it's a really clever thought. one of the other things you can do is we were saying at the beginning, you can play with the assets that exist already for a brand. One of those assets is the name. Is there something you can do, not just with the logo, but with the name, with the spelling, with the is there a twist? We have a wonderful history particularly in British graphics of playing with our language in a sort of malleable way, mucking around with puns and things like that. So there's a great tradition of doing that. So that's another way to sort of get little thoughts going. In normal, normal circumstances, we would be doing this in the studio, of course. And we the way we do this, just for those of you that are interested, is we wander around the class and we often put people in teams. This sort of work is often done in teams commercially. It's a great way to come up with problems where the result is the team's effort. It doesn't matter who in the team maybe had the thought, but the banter that can emerge, and the kind of conversations that can emerge when you're chatting to someone else about a thought are really, really valuable. And talking, for me, is the only way to stay dynamic if you're sitting down. Chairs and tables are almost designed to put your mind into a slump because your weight is supported. My elbows are currently leaning on the table with my chin on my hands, so my body has to do very little to stay upright. But the conversation is the bit that keeps your mind active. So we encourage people to work in teams in the studio, and a number of staff are walking around the room and picking things up and talking about them, showing them to everybody else. So it's a very, very sort of interactive and active way of doing a workshop. So a couple more minutes in this first 10-minute block. I'm going to show you one more little inspirational image. This is an absolute joy, a complete and perfect accident, but a brilliant piece of observation. This is a little ad that came up on TV saying that the current series of Friends ends on Friday. So here you have this just joyous spelling accident, and it is an accident, but what's clever about it from a designer's point of view is that the designer spotted it. So this is a good example of using the asset. Just the asset is the name. Are there other ways to do this? Absolutely, but this is one of them. So one more minute, and then we'll be hopefully one or two of you might want to show us whatever you've been scribbling at. If not, I will show you a scribble that I've done. I need to show them this. Right, I make that 14 minutes past. That's roughly 10 minutes. So, who, if anyone, is willing to pop their video on and present something to screen?
So I've put a message in the chat. So if anybody would like to share, if they could just drop us a message there, and then I can unmute you and start your video. No one so far. Maybe no one's feeling brave on first thing on a Monday morning. So Hannah, perfect. So hopefully Hannah should appear very shortly.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello. Hiya.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
So this is very crude.
Oh, don't worry.
So I went for Nike.
Yeah.
And I came up with this idea for teenagers.
Yes.
See it. And the whole point is it would be a floor angle photograph. It'd be Nike shoes, Nike trainers.
Yeah.
Teenager, and she's at the staircase of a college. I didn't quite get it right on, but it would be college sign up this way. And I would just have "just do it" at the bottom there. So it's like "just do it," because that's a slogan, and it's also like go to college, you can achieve anything.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was my idea anyway.
Yeah, that would kind of work well in a context where perhaps, I mean, in a way, what you're saying is Nike are kind of encouraging people maybe to go and get an education, or is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That's sort of like a brand associating itself in a different sector. Yeah, that's a nice thought. Jamie,
Really,
any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really good. It's got that nice kind of Nike iconic feel, hasn't it? Like they love this kind of cropped in photography style. So you've even got a really on brand style of photography there as well. So really cool idea, really nice. It's good also to have that, they always want that positive message, don't they? So promoting education is always going to be something that Nike would do. So yeah, good, really cool.
I saw a great ad, Hannah, from the same angle that your ad is from. It was actually for it was for the Six Nations rugby, or no, maybe it was the rugby. It must have been the Rugby World Cup. No, I think it was Six Nations, and England play. I think they play in. Oh no, this is why it's the World Cup. The All Blacks play in black socks that have a white top, and there was a photograph taken of a player. The camera must have been very, very close to the floor, and you could see the football boot or the rugby boot, and this ankle coming up, and the calf, because the rugby player was really muscly, sort of bulging out, and the white at the top. And really what it was saying was the whole tournament was sponsored by Guinness, and this black sock and this white top looked exactly like a pint of Guinness. It was absolutely fantastic little idea. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to very quickly show you an ad for Audi, and it's a dreadful little idea. It's to do with the current climate of social distancing. So this is a dreadful little example of Audi's logo. These four little circles, and all I've done is I've spread them out across the width of the advert and pulled them all apart and just put a bit of copy saying keep your distance. And so there's my little initial thought in the first 10 minutes. Jamie, what have you done?
Mine's not quite ready yet. You jumped on me a bit. I did.
Is there anyone else out there that's gonna follow Hannah for a quick crit?
No one else yet.
We've got some perfectionists here. Okay, right. Well, look. In that case, we're going to hit the second 10-minute period. So hopefully, in 10 more minutes, we'll have one or two more people. So I make it 18 past. So at 28 past. We will we'll have another quick break, and hopefully some of you will show us your work. I'm going to put it back onto that presentation so I can put the list of brands back up and show you those examples again. So those are the brands back for anyone. And as I said earlier, if you're getting stuck, don't flog a dead horse. Honestly, it's not about that today. Just try something completely different. So I'm going to show you another little advert just to get your creative juices flowing. So this is one of my all-time favorites. This is a bit like Hannah was saying, Nike might sort of encourage you to go to college. Sometimes you see a major brand piggybacking on the back of something completely different. And in this case, Heinz Spaghetti, I think, were promoting the Spider-Man film. So this was an in-store poster, and you got this fantastic little idea, this tin of spaghetti underneath the shelf, hanging on somehow. So really, and if you think about it, all that's about is thinking about the subject. What do we know about Spider-Man? Again, there are other ways to do this probably. Perhaps you might have taken the lid off of the spaghetti, poured it all out and had a look at it inside and done something completely separate. But that is just a great little idea. really lovely, what we might call ambient media advert here. So ambient media is an advert you see in a place you don't expect to see it. And this was advertising the Sopranos brilliant series. It was on a few years ago. So this taxi cab driving around New York with this apparently this arm of this dead gangster hanging out of the boot. And great, you can imagine the impact an ad like this has. Really funny, really humorous, really different. And people are often playing with these ambient media locations because we have such a lot of information fatigue. You know, we get all our ads through our, you know, social media, you know, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. You're bombarded with ads on TV, on billboards, magazines, newspapers. They're everywhere. So sometimes the challenge is just to find an unexpected place to get people to notice and to cut through all the kind of noise that we, you know, that is part of our lives now. With a really, you know, and if you think about it, that is just so simple. There's nothing clever. There's not even any copywriting going on. It's a physical thing. Another way into the problem is just to think about, you know, think about that organization and what they make, what they sell. I was just staring at Starbucks a minute ago. You know, so it's coffee. Then I'm thinking of the properties of coffee. You know, what, you know, is it refreshing? Is it energizing? Is it to do with the fact that you can get, you know, 15 different types of coffee? Is it the fact that Starbucks is everywhere and it's convenient? So you can ask these questions of any of these brands. You can just poke a, you know, often what design is about is asking questions and interrogating what the problem is, laying it bare, opening it out, so that you can find something within all of that that becomes the kind of way that you solve the problem. Genius ad here for you. This is one of the longest ad series I've ever seen. This is for The Economist. I'm sure you all know about this magazine. And all their ads have been like this. They're just pieces of copy. They use the typeface that the Economist masthead is in, the same color. And all of them are references to the single thought that people that read The Economist are kind of cut above everybody else. It's all about that sort of intelligence. And they've been playing that same game for years and years and years. So if you're interested, you can just Google some of The Economist ads. They're all fantastic. So a couple more minutes, I think. Yeah, a couple more minutes, and then it'd be really great to see some people show us what they're up to. Right, I made that 28 past. I think that was our second 10-minute period. So who, if anyone, is feeling brave this morning, wants to share what they've been up to?
I'm very intrigued to see what Jamie has done. I've been watching him like scribbling away with different pens, and
Yeah,
I'm very intrigued.
I felt brave, and I got my colours out. So yeah. So this is less of an idea, but I've just taken two of the things that you've put in there, and McDonald's and magazines. And I just thought about using the actual assets of the magazine here. So creating a magazine that has completely yellow pages, but when you open them, they sort of create the McDonald's M.
Yeah,
It'd probably be a print advert. It doesn't say a lot, but I've also got one for which is slightly current, for the Black Lives Matter stuff as well, that's going on, and just getting people to sign a petition, and having a just do it, and then using the tick. That's the kind of asset that we're talking about, using the tick in a different way. So having it look like it's actually ticking a box to indicate signing petitions, quite an interesting use of the.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit your little brief, but I just thought it was quite a cool little idea anyway. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Amazing. And then we've got Claire, who is happy to share. So let me bring Claire up on screen.
Hi, Claire.
Hello.
Right.
So I've been playing with a couple of ideas. Starting off, I was looking at kind of like Apple and parents. I was kind of working on a large and a small, and how that could work.
Yeah.
And then kind of thinking as a parent about online safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, Claire, I think you've muted somehow.
I think your audio dropped out there, Claire.
Does that come back? My signal's terrible here.
I know. I'm sure Jamie feels the same. If I was walking around the studio and I saw that scribble, I would be quite excited about it. Sorry, I've got a 12-year-old hovering in the background. It's, that idea of putting that smaller apple within the shape, the cutout of the bigger apple's definitely got some potential. Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Claire. And then we've got a couple of other people.
Good.
So let me bring up Joanna first.
Oh, it's coming. Hello.
Hi, Joanna.
I was looking at like the IKEA, and like with the social distancing arrows, having to carry everything, and just sort of experimenting with the arrows.
Yeah, again, I can really see that, that there's something in that, isn't there, Jamie? It's just, what is amazing about this exercise is we find this with the students. We give them slightly longer. We give them about 30 minutes uninterrupted, and so many people come up with a little thought that is the start of something that, with a bit of crafting later on, you can turn it into something great. And it all just, it proves that, if you think really quickly, think quite fluidly, pen and paper, you don't need any distraction like a computer, you don't need to worry about typefaces and photography, just scribble. You can come up with a little thought, and that thought can become something that you later refine. That's when you can get on the computer later and whatever it needs to be, and spend a bit more time with it. But yeah, I could really see that working. That's a great sort of thought around the current time. So thanks for that. That's fantastic.
I also think, just to add to that, IKEA are quite a reactive brand, a little bit like you'll have seen all of the Specsavers. It should have gone to Specsavers, that advert. But IKEA have a similar tone, and they like to react to things. And I don't know if you saw this story in the news recently, but somebody created a kind of loop in there. They brought their own stickers to put on the IKEA floor, and they created a loop so that people just went round and round in circles. It was a never-ending circle. And it would have been a really funny campaign to do straight after that happened, almost to kind of make light of the situation. In just quite a humorous way. It just seems like something that, once again, it's something that IKEA would probably do. They'd probably do something similar.
Yeah, totally. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Anyone else volunteering?
We have got Lynn, but I'm tempted to say, shall we save Lynn until the end? And do you want to go on to the next 10 minutes, or do you want one more person, Martin?
Let's just quickly look at Lynn's stuff.
Let me find Lynn. Oh, she's here. Hi, Lynn.
Hello.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Right, go on then. What have you got?
Davis. I did IKEA as well, and I was thinking about retired couples.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of trying to sort of change the way the IKEA logo works to make it sort of look a bit like a sunset, but also maybe like a rug that they could have in their newly built garden room or something like that, and then kind of creating the kind of wording, because they always have kind of names for things, don't they? So yeah.
I can see Jamie smiling there. Again, it's just that little kernel of a thought. There's plenty, it's got so much mileage, a little thought like that, because those, what's it called, an umlaut, I think, is so so connected to that. I think they're Danish brand, are they, IKEA? But yeah, you can really muck about with language with that thought, and you could imagine then applying it to sort of loads of different audiences depending on what the copy was. So that's a really, really nice thought, and I absolutely love that poster on the wall behind you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do the last little 10 minutes. So I will put the, I will try and get that presentation back, and there we go. And then I'll show you a couple more examples, and we'll conclude in about 10 minutes time. Okay. So I'm going to flash up another quick image for you. Where did we get to? So this is another little idea that's completely location specific. This one for Hoover, the vacuum cleaner company. Well, I think they make all sorts of things now, but anyway, this is clearly referencing the suction power of their vacuum cleaners. So bit of a daft idea, but completely, I suspect that this is a completely fake advert. I can't imagine anyone actually doing that, but it's a nice little thought and very much about the location. So if you've shown us something already and you want to have another go, there's the brands again. There's the list of audiences and locations.
I'm going to have one more go, Martin.
Yeah, me too.
I've lost my Sharpie now, though.
I've cracked it, Jamie. I've got a great little idea.
I've got a bit of an idea as well.
Liv, are you having a go at this one?
I haven't as yet. Not feeling so brave this morning.
Okay. Here's another great ad for you. Nice one to sort of have a little laugh at, little chuckle. This is just a genius ad that relies again on its location, so it's entirely dependent on that particular place. In this case, a very long articulated lorry, and just referencing, you know, the fact that, you know, bran in your diet keeps you regular. So it's just a superb little fun idea. So just 5 more minutes. And this is the last little example I'll show you. One of my favourites, a little advert here for Hellmann's extra light mayonnaise. Not really about a location, but just a really great little idea around what, you know, the fact that light mayonnaise is you know, better for you, less fattening. Superb little thought.
It's one for your clothes. If I can understand that, then it must be good. Because I'm a weak chap. Here at one.
A couple more minutes now, everybody.
I've just realised I thought ambient media on your list, but you don't. So I've just done an advert that isn't on brief.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, anywhere at all.
Yeah.
Right, I think we're more or less done. Give or take a minute or so. So I'll just stop that. Does anyone? Anyone particularly, perhaps who hasn't shown before, but I'm very happy if you have, would like to share their screen. That would be fantastic.
I can do mine. I had a go after you pressed me into it. So my sketch is awful, but I did Nike on the side of a bus or a different kind of big vehicle, and thinking about all the issues that have been brought about by COVID in terms of green modes of transport and the environment. And so it would have a kind of cyclist speeding along the side of a bus, thinking about, especially being in London, sat in traffic, and it would have the tick saying just do it. So pointing out there are other modes of transport available that are green.
Yeah, there's mileage there. Yeah, totally. It's actually a little bit sad, isn't it, that all the traffic seems to have gone more or less back to normal.
Yeah.
Right, anybody else out there got a thought?
No, quite a few actually.
So they're all. Oh, so Lynn is happy to share again. Let's get Lynn up on screen. Hi again, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi. I kind of stole your Aldi idea a little bit and made an eBay version.
Yeah.
So it's social distancing, kind of getting people to buy online and just kind of taking the eBay logo and it just says keep buying and stay safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Got you.
Creating the logo.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's got potential. That's almost done, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I've got a similar thought. I haven't quite resolved it. I'll show you what it is. This is an IKEA thing. It's something to do with the joke around how far you've got to walk in the store, which is a common sort of a common piece of knowledge, I suppose, about IKEA. You might only go in for a sort of I don't know, some of those candles, but you've got to walk about 3 miles to get to the end.
Yeah.
So it's something to do with that, but it needs a bit of work. And anybody else out there want to share something? I think Nikki's willing to come online.
So she should appear shortly. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, am I online?
You are. We can see.
Oh, lovely. Fab, thank you.
Hello, Nikki.
Hi, I stole your Audi idea as well, but I've put it onto the McDonald's,
Oh, yeah.
making the Big Mac socially distanced.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about the Golden Arches.
Yeah.
And then this could be a bus, like the side of the bus stop, you know, the like where people were waiting. It could actually look like the digital thing that you use when you go in that I can never use.
Yeah.
And then on the side of the bus. And then I really started to go a bit bonkers, and it was the Golden Arches with a face mask on. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it looks like a nappy or not. So I'm not sure about it.
I like the copy line that you've got on the other one. You didn't actually point it out, but the one that says "I'm loving it again."
Oh yeah, I was trying to play around with that and just couldn't really go any further than that.
No, that's great. That's really great. I had a similar thought. Well, I just put something like that.
Oh yeah.
I hadn't worked out where it would go, but just that sort of they put that muck sound in front of everything, don't they? So I thought you could do something like that. Yeah. Jamie, were you working on another one?
Yeah, I didn't want to draw the person though, but I was thinking about people who go to was it the dads? I can't remember what it was now actually. I've got my little image. It was young fathers or young mothers, but going to the park and having a run rather than having a sit down. But I didn't want to draw the person, so I've just drawn the bench.
Okay.
And remove the seats and then just turn it into a Nike advert.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting down in this park.
Yeah. Great. Brilliant. Anyone else out there? Right. I think we might be done there.
Oh, Elaine. We've got
Elaine,
one.
brilliant.
Go for it.
Hi, Elaine.
Hey. Okay, so I found this incredibly difficult to do. I don't think like this really as a process. So I've got loads of stuff down the side where I was starting to jot with this idea of everybody's had loads and loads of Amazon deliveries, and probably teaching media, the thing that struck me most as an advert that worked most is Lara Croft crawling up the sides of walls. So I wanted to play around with the idea of people retiring. We've been stuck in our houses for 12 weeks, so now we get out, and we get out with all the things that we've bought, like bikes and climbing hooks and just stuff that we've had sitting in boxes in the hall waiting for us to use. So this idea that Amazon smiles a bit about deliveries, but now it's about getting out and doing stuff with them.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those thoughts, isn't it, that you just think that could really go somewhere.
Yeah.
I love, Elaine, that you said you found it really hard.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think like that, but this is a great idea that I could really imagine seeing.
Yeah, just thought of the side of buses so we could have silver-haired OAP. I think I just wanted to play with this idea that when you retire, you do DIY and gardening and reading, and it's a bit of a stereotype, but actually when we retire, we go, bugger it, got independence. I'm off now to do all these things. And having not spent money in the pub and in restaurants, I've just got boxes sitting in my house waiting for me to go out and do stuff with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also on that as well, I think everybody finds this difficult. This process is not the easiest, and some people are more tuned into it than others, but it also is just, it's about exercising your brain. So it does, you get better and better every time you do it. When you start getting interested in making puns, you know, like the kind of dad puns, and then they just come to you just so easily. It's just changing the way your brain works. And actually you've come up with some really great ideas there.
Yeah. It's also really, I agree with you, Jamie. Plus it's extra hard with someone holding a stopwatch to you and you're doing it on your own. It's so much easier in a little group, because you can, the trick is always to not pre-edit stuff. It's just to blurt it out, scribble it down, write it down, and not sort of judge it in your head. Just sort of spew it out, and someone in that group might say, well, they might pick up on a fragment of a thought, and then it bounces around 2 or 3 people, and it either goes somewhere or it doesn't. But it's always easier in teams. So the sort of exercise we've done this morning is a kind of mimic as best we can of what we might do in a studio full of people. But it's been really wonderful
very useful.
to sort of, you know, have you all take part.
Also, I was going to say, also, it's worth just noting that this, as you said before, this would be a 2.5-hour workshop, but also in an agency, this is just an ongoing process, and you do kind of these things called design sprints, where you're very quickly kind of coming up with lots of different ideas, and and this is sort of a step in that direction, but nobody will come out of this unless you're very, very lucky with that brilliant idea. But after doing this for an hour, your idea process becomes so much more refined, and so so don't expect to get, you know, those award-winning ideas out of 10 minutes. But yeah, it's good. There's some really good ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you were saying about it being a different part of your brain, I can definitely kind of agree with that, because I feel like it is a real workout for a different part of my brain that I don't use necessarily in my job. But you can see how over the course of doing the course at NUA that you would become so attuned to this kind of thinking. Like I feel like you two must struggle in everyday life, constantly having so many ideas walking around.
You do get so the thing I find, I don't know about you, Jamie, is that sometimes most graphics is terrible, and you just can't help but look at it and groan inwardly. And sometimes you get this sort of overdose of sort of thinking, or you're looking at things thinking that how you would do it differently.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When I went to Australia, I was having to shut my eyes half of the time, looking at all the graphics everywhere. I was like, there's no ideas, and it's all set in the wrong typeface. Everything was too difficult to look at.
Yeah,
I just went around like this the whole time.
A nice little thought that come in on the chat from Finn. This is one of the other things about ads, of course. You know, you could really get it moving, get some sound, get a really great piece of music going. So yeah, again, there's a real potential in that. So Liv, how does that sound? Are we sort of, does that feel like a natural conclusion?
Yeah, I think just to say, if anybody does have any more kind of general questions for Martin or Jamie, we'll stay online for a few minutes just to answer any of those if you do have them. But also just to point out that, as Martin mentioned a little bit about the user experience design course, we do have a UX design workshop next Monday. I think it's the same time next week, so hopefully you guys will have already booked onto that. But if you haven't, hopefully this has also kind of sparked your interest a little bit, and you might want to go to the website and sign up to that, because we'd love to have you for that one as well. Yeah,
and just to tell you, we won't be challenging you in the same way in that one. You won't have to create any sort of original thoughts. It's much more about using things and testing things, so that should be a nice different experience. So it'd be great to see some of you there next Monday for that one.
And also, I would love to see the images of the work that you've produced as part of this workshop. So if you're able to post them on Instagram and tag us at the normal NUA outreach, we can kind of compile them, and we'll be reposting them throughout the week. So we'd really love to see them. You can also email us at student.recruitment@nua.ac.uk. It doesn't look like we've had any questions, but we'll just kind of hang on here for a few minutes, but you are free to leave if you would like to.
And just to repeat, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, it's I did actually put it in the chat, but I think it's gone private. It's got a little red.
I'll let me put it in there for you. I'll send it to everyone.
Yeah. Brilliant. So there's my email address. You know, if something occurs to you later today or at any point about the courses, just get in touch. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Some really great ideas though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Puts us to shame.
But I couldn't believe, Martin, when you showed your Audi one, I was like, how have you come up with that quickly?
Well, I'm gonna confess it's slightly nicked. McDonald's actually came up with it. They did the golden arches really. They pushed them apart early on, early doors. This was, and that's such an adaptable idea. But I just wanted to show something just to get that sort of thought going. But this is the thing. I mean, when we were chatting in the second 10-minute session at the end, and someone was showing an IKEA ad, that made me think, right, come on, just do an IKEA ad. There's got to be something you can do here. What I couldn't get out of my head today was the current situation, the sort of COVID-19 thing. So everything I was thinking about ended up being kind of tailored to that.
But I guess that in itself is so important because, as you were saying, brands, especially now, have to be so responsive and adaptable. And there is that pressure to always be making a statement, I guess.
Yeah.
We've had one question from Joanna who was asked whether the PowerPoint will be available. So that's really a question for you, Martin, whether you're happy for us to share your PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's a keynote actually, but I could export it to PowerPoint if it's easier. It might work better if I delete the bits of motion out of it. Joanna, if that's all right, I'm very happy to do that. And yeah.
And also to say it will kind of form part of this presentation. So with the recorded version, you will obviously be able to see the PowerPoint within that. But I'm sure as Martin is happy, we can kind of circulate the PowerPoint / keynote with that recording.
No problem at all, yeah.
Great. But otherwise, I think it looks like there are no other questions, so I think we'll leave it there for today. But thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully I'll see you kind of throughout the week at the other workshops we've got booked in. Brilliant. Thanks, Liv. And Jamie, thanks very much for your help too. Thanks everybody for joining in. Perhaps see some of you next week. Great. Thanks all. Bye. Cheerio.